Hi, everyone. I'm Whitney Sullivan, and this is Three Myths Blocking Connection at Work. And I'm a motivational speaker and leadership coach based in Bozeman, Montana. And we're here today to learn three myth busting connection strategies that will help increase engagement, support, and motivation in your workplace. And why I wanted to talk about this today and why I feel like it's so important right now is because the employee experience the last 2 years has really felt like a never-ending series of mountain climbs. And you can even give me a thumbs up on the video. You can hit that like button if the last 2 years has just kind of felt like one mountain climb after another. First it was COVID and lockdown, and then it was navigating illness and grief and caregiving and major life changes. And then now the pandemic might be over and we might have climbed to the top of that mountain, but we're finding that another mountain just awaited us and that it's going to take some time to figure out the whole remote and hybrid work, what work routines are going to work best for our organizations, what office culture is going to look like. And all of this to say is that it's just been 2 years of chronic stress, and the employee experience has been characterized by a lot of chronic stress the last 2 years. And byproducts of chronic stress are burnout, isolation, and disengagement. And those three things are not only happening because the 2 years has just been really stressful, but those things are really prevalent right now because something that we tend to do when we're in seasons of long term chronic stress is we tend to put connection and social well being and relationships on the back burner. And so, burnout, isolation, and disengagement are also byproducts of disconnection. So, we have kind of a double whammy of consequences between chronic stress and widespread disengagement that we're experiencing. But now, more than ever, we need connection in order to help us through these difficult times because connection is that spark of energy we get when we feel seen, heard, and valued in our relationships and our work relationships. And when we make social investment and social well being, investing in that really habitual, it creates an upward spiral of energy that can help us counter the byproducts of chronic stress and disconnection, which are burnout, isolation, and disengagement. And really, what I want you to take from this is connection isn't something you wait to focus on until you get to the other side of difficult circumstances. It's what you focus on to get you to the other side of difficult circumstances. And that's because humans are just simply wired for connection. We're wired to be in relationship with each other, and that's why we get so much energy from it. But when we're in stress, there's some myth-based mindsets that can block connection and actually promote more disconnection. And so today we'll identify those mindsets and some actionable strategies we can use to counter them. And then that way we can take connection off the back burner and tap into that energy that we can gain from it. And the first mindset myth that we tend to believe when we get into these stressful seasons or when we get into really heat of the moment crisis situations is that, I can't offer support to my coworkers in the heat of the moment or in the height of a stressful season because I'm uncertain if I can deliver or if I can really do anything to help. And, it's normal to feel a little hesitance to offer a stressed out colleague support because it is vulnerable. We start to think things like, well, what if they ask me for something that I can't do? What if they need something beyond my capability or capacity? Oh, hi there, Marcia. And do I even have time to be asking? And so this situation is pretty vulnerable. But the reality is that connection isn't about fixing other people's problems or offering support in a really perfect way. Connection is just really about showing up for other people in vulnerable moments when they're stressed or when they're in the heat of the moment and helping them feel seen and supported and cared for. And I want you to know that most of the time, when someone's in that heat of the moment or the height of a stressful situation, They don't always need something specific from you, but just feeling seen, feeling acknowledged, feeling attended to, feeling cared about, that gives them that connection boost of energy that can help them through. But how do we take this theory and put it into action? What's the actionable strategy that we can use to help others feel seen and supported in that way? And so when someone's in the heat of the moment or in the grind of a stressful season, we want to offer support with clear and direct language. And that's going to help them feel seen and supported and access that spark of energy that connection can offer. And we do that by asking what questions, because what questions are direct. They inform a reflection and they inform a response. And two of my favorite questions that I like to ask to offer support to colleagues is first, what do you need? And this is a great question to ask if someone's like in a really like kind of heat of the moment situation, like there's a very present crisis, maybe they're kind of offline in stress. And this question can really help that person just pause, take a deep breath, reflect, and be like, oh, what do I need? And just reflect for a moment on one thing that could help make their situation better. And just by asking this question, you're going to help that person feel seen and supported. My second favorite question is, what does support look like from me? And this is an excellent replacement for us for saying, let me know. I want us to stop saying, oh, just let me know what you need. It's not direct enough. And this is a much more direct way to offer support. What does support look like for me right now? And this is a really great question to ask on a consistent basis. So if someone is kind of in a stressful season, just in general, like they're just kind of consistently in high stakes, high emotion moments, this is a great question just to kind of ask week in and week out, just so that person knows that you're there for them, you're asking the question, and they have that opportunity to share with you if there is something that they need. And here's another thing about support. I want to acknowledge that vulnerability that, oh my gosh, like what if I don't have the capability? What if I don't have the capacity to help them? Like I'm asking these questions, but what if I can't back it up with action? And most of the time, again, people just want to be acknowledged and attended to. And I would say most of the time when I ask these people these questions, they just start talking and they just needed 5 minutes to be heard. And that kind of gives them that spark. But let's say that they do have a specific request. The thing about offering support is that your support offer comes with the boundaries of your choice. And in the end, it's not your sole responsibility to help that person get their needs met. It's their responsibility to identify what their needs are and make a clear request of you. And then what's yours to own is showing up to that moment and offering what you can, right? And that support offer has to work for you as much as that support offer has to work for you too. And how we can set boundaries is using contrasting those statements on the right. We can say things like, well, what I can do, what I can't do, what I can offer, what I can't, what I can offer, what I can't offer. And that will just help us set boundaries in a way that works for us and in a way that still allows us to show up for that person and help them feel seen. Moving on to mindset myth number 2. And if it's vulnerable to offer help, it might be twice as vulnerable to ask for help. And what can happen in stressful situations is there tends to be connection gaps that start to arise because people might be needing support, but then other people don't know that they need it if they don't ask for it. And the reason that this happens is because we believe this myth that says, I must always maintain a success image and not have needs or weaknesses at work. I can't look like I'm failing. I can't look like I'm weak. I can't look like I'm needy. I can't look like a complainer. I think that was my top hit when in my previous career. If I do all of those things, then I'm not successful. When the reality is that being interdependent is what makes a team strong. And it's how each person can contribute value and bring their strengths and talents to the table. When we ask others for help, it means that they feel useful and they feel needed and they feel valued. And when people feel valued in the workplace, we get that spark of energy. So when we ourselves are in stress, we have a choice. We can connect and set aside this myth that says if I ask for help, then I'm not successful. And we can let our needs be seen, or we have a choice to disconnect and withdraw and try to go it alone. And that's a path that's going to lead to burnout, isolation, and disengagement. So we want to choose to connect. We want to choose to connect, but in order to do that really well, we also need to get curious about that stress need and just take a moment to reflect on this moment of stress. What overarching need is not being met? We get stressed at work when our needs aren't being met. So, what overarching need is that? The second question we want to ask ourselves is what's one thing that would make it better? And then the third thing we want to ask is who is the right person to ask for this support? And then once we've asked ourselves those three questions, we're ready to take action and ask for support in a really clear way. And I have some tools up on the screen that we can use to be intentional about asking for support, because I know that sometimes the hardest part about asking for help is just showing up to that conversation and getting started. And so I have two conversation starters that you could even use one after the other to just start the conversation on what it is you might need. You can send a text, you can send an email, you can ask in person to the person that you know you need to ask for help. And it's, can we have a conversation about, or I need support with, and what that looks like is. And that can give us that kind of kickstart to get the conversation going. And then we can also use contrasting to keep the conversation going. Because I want you to know that asking for support and asking for what you need, it might take more than one conversation to translate information from our heart all the way up to our head. That's going to take a few times and a few tries to get really clear on it. And that's completely normal. But we can use contrasting to help clarify that language when we're in that support conversation. We can say things like, well, what I need is, and what I don't need is. Moving forward, what's okay is, and what's not okay is. And that just helps add clarity to the conversation, and it helps keep the conversation going in the right direction. And before we finish out with that third mindset myth, I just want to pause for a quick commercial break to talk about a service that I offer, which is my Connection at Work educational session. And it can be offered as a webinar, it can be offered as a workshop, or it can be offered as a longer retreat. But the goal of it is to increase brain power, belonging, and bottom line at your workplace. And each session will offer 3 small shifts and 3 hard stops that increase feelings of support, engagement, and motivation in your culture. And each session is customized to the specific needs of your organization. And then I make a workbook that goes along with it. So if this is something that you're interested in, you're curious about working with me, you can download a Connection workbook sample. I've also popped this into the chat. And so you should be able to see it in up here on the screen, or you can scan that QR code. But something available to you if you're interested in bringing some professional development into your organization. But enough with commercials. Let's finish out our mindset myths. And the last mindset myth that blocks connection at work and promotes burnout, isolation, and disengagement is the mindset that says emotions and feelings don't belong in the workplace. And the thing is that support and connection, it's all feelings. Connection is the spark of energy we get when we feel seen and supported, heard and listened to, valued and meaningful. And the reality is that feelings drive action. And so it's a myth that we should take emotion out of the workplace, because feeling valued, feeling appreciated, helping others feel valued and appreciated is one of the most simple and practical ways we can access more motivation and more energy at work. And how we can take that theory to action is to routinely communicate others' value. And to value others is to communicate that their presence matters and their contribution to the team is meaningful. Tangible ways that we do that is celebrating their successes, building a habit of sincere praise, and having a strong practice of gratitude. And all super simple behaviors, but very powerful. And I just want you to even take a moment to reflect here. When was a specific time at work that you felt valued? Like, just close your eyes or write it down on a piece of paper. Think of a specific situation where you just felt so valued at work, or maybe you just felt really seen or really heard. People were celebrating your successes, they were giving you praise, they were sharing gratitude for you. And when you bring that situation to your mind, what actions did it inspire you to take? What actions did you take as a result of feeling that way? And I love asking this question to groups because the responses I always get are something along the lines of, well, it inspired me to work harder, or it encouraged me to keep showing up that way, or it inspired me to embrace change, or it challenged me to try something new, which were all incredible responses that help us really access awesome energy to get us through stressful times. And so when we make valuing others a habit, it promotes a culture of positive feelings, and those positive feelings drive positive actions. So, to summarize today, connection is the spark of energy we get from being seen, heard, and valued. And when that becomes a habitual part of our culture, it increases our sense of belonging, it increases our brain power, and it increases our ability to take actions in ways that advance our bottom line, which is exactly what we need to counter this difficult season that we've been in. And what I want to leave you with is that connection isn't something you wait to focus on when you get to the other side of challenging circumstances. It's what you focus on to get you to the other side of challenging circumstances. So thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions about the things that I've talked about, please feel free to drop it in the comments, or you can send me a direct message. But please know that wherever you are, I'm rooting for you, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon.